The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Hudson Technologies' conference room, casting long shadows across the polished mahogany table. I adjusted my blazer, smoothing out invisible wrinkles, a habit I'd developed over years of being scrutinized by my family. "Sarah, since you're just standing there, make yourself useful and get us coffee," my sister Amanda's voice cut through the pre-meeting chatter. "You know how everyone likes it, right? I mean, you've been bringing it to these meetings long enough." I bit back a retort, watching the smirks spread across my siblings' faces. Amanda, Michael, and David, all executives in our family company, all convinced they were irreplaceable. They had no idea. "Of course," I replied smoothly, turning toward the coffee station. 5 years of playing this role had taught me patience. Let them think I was just the family disappointment, the one who couldn't handle real responsibility. As I prepared the coffee, my mind drifted to the late-night meetings I'd been having with Marcus Chin, our aging CEO. Meetings no one knew about, where we pored over financial reports, acquisition strategies, and the truth about our company's dire situation. "Here's your coffee, extra foam, no sugar," I said, placing a cup in front of Amanda. She barely glanced up from her phone. Michael and David were too busy arguing about their latest failed project to even acknowledge me. The conference room slowly filled with board members and senior executives. I took my usual spot near the back wall, laptop ready to take notes as everyone assumed. If they'd ever bothered to look at my screen, they'd have seen complex financial models and restructuring plans, not meeting minutes. Marcus walked in last, his presence commanding immediate attention. At 72, he still carried himself with the authority that had built Hudson Technologies from a small family business into a regional powerhouse. But I could see the weariness in his eyes, the weight of knowing our company was quietly drowning in debt, thanks to my siblings' mismanagement. "Before we begin," Marcus announced, his voice steady, "I have an important announcement about the future of Hudson Technologies." My heart rate picked up. This was it. "As you know, I've been looking for the right person to take over as CEO when I retire next month," he continued. "Someone who understands not just our business but our values. Someone who can guide us through the challenges ahead." Amanda straightened in her chair, smoothing her designer dress. Michael and David exchanged knowing looks. Each of them thought they were the obvious choice. For the past 5 years, while some of us were focused on appearances, Marcus's gaze swept across my siblings. "One person has been quietly working to save this company from bankruptcy." The room grew still. Amanda's perfectly manicured hand froze halfway to her coffee cup. "This person identified our financial weaknesses, developed a comprehensive restructuring plan, and secured the private funding we needed to stay afloat. All without taking credit or demanding recognition." I could see confusion spreading across faces around the table. My siblings looked increasingly uncertain. "Everyone," Marcus said, a slight smile playing at his lips, "meet your future boss. Sarah Hudson will be taking over as CEO and majority shareholder of Hudson Technologies." The coffee cup slipped from Amanda's hand, spilling across her pristine white dress. But for once she didn't notice. "This is a joke, right?" Michael stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Sarah? She's nothing but a secretary?" I finished for him, finally standing up. "Is that what you think I've been doing all these years? Taking notes and fetching coffee?" I walked to the front of the room, each step measured and deliberate. Opening my laptop, I connected it to the presentation screen. Financial reports, acquisition strategies, and restructuring plans filled the display. "While you were busy expanding your office and buying company cars," I said, looking directly at Michael, "I was restructuring our debt." I turned to David. "While you were playing golf with clients who never signed, I was securing new contracts." Finally, I faced Amanda. "And while you were ordering me around like your personal assistant, I was saving the company you were too busy to notice was sinking." The room erupted in chaos. But through it all, I remained calm, standing beside Marcus, watching my siblings' perfectly constructed world crumble around them. This was just the beginning. The next few hours were a blur of accusations, denials, and increasingly desperate attempts by my siblings to undermine what was happening. Amanda had recovered from her coffee mishap and was now pacing the conference room like a caged animal, her designer dress still sporting a brown stain that seemed to mock her usual perfection. "This is ridiculous," she spat, her voice trembling with rage. I've been executive vice president for 5 years. I've brought in millions in contracts. I calmly pulled up another spreadsheet on the screen. You mean these contracts? I asked, highlighting a row of numbers. The ones where you offered such deep discounts to hit your quarterly targets that we actually lost money? Or maybe you're referring to the Jensen account that cost us $3.2 million in overhead because you didn't read the fine print. Michael jumped in, his face red. What about my expansion plans? I've grown our market share. By 2%, I countered, switching to another document, while spending $12 million on unnecessary office renovations and executive perks. Would you like to explain to the board why you needed a company helicopter for client meetings that mysteriously always happened in the Hamptons during summer weekends? David, always the quietest of my siblings, finally spoke up. Dad would never have wanted this. He built this company for all of us. I felt a familiar ache at the mention of our father, but I didn't let it show. Dad built this company to last, David. But in the 5 years since he passed away, you three have nearly run it into the ground. Want to see the numbers? I pulled up a graph showing our company's declining profits since our father's death. The downward trend was stark, broken only by recent upticks that coincided with my secret interventions. How did you even get the money to buy shares? Amanda demanded. You've never made more than an entry-level salary. I smiled, remembering all the nights I'd spent building my own investment portfolio, making careful choices while my siblings blew their trust funds on luxury cars and vacation homes. Remember that crypto investment you all laughed at 5 years ago? The one you called a foolish waste of inheritance? I watched understanding dawn on their faces. I turned Dad's small inheritance into enough to start buying company shares when they were at their lowest. Thanks to your mismanagement, they were quite affordable. Marcus stepped forward, commanding attention once again. Sarah didn't just buy shares, he explained, his voice carrying authority that silenced even Amanda's protests. She developed a comprehensive rescue plan when our major creditors were about to call in their loans. A plan that saved not just this company but all of your jobs. He gestured to a stack of documents being distributed by his assistant. These reports show exactly how close we came to bankruptcy last year. Sarah mortgaged her own home to secure bridge financing. She worked nights and weekends analyzing every department, finding inefficiencies, and implementing solutions so quietly that none of you even noticed. The board members were flipping through the reports, their expressions shifting from skepticism to amazement. The numbers didn't lie. While you were all fighting over corner offices, Marcus continued, Sarah was in the trenches with our employees, learning every aspect of our operations. She knows this company better than anyone in this room, including me. I watched my siblings deflate as reality finally sank in. Their perfect world of privilege and entitlement was crumbling, replaced by something they'd never expected: accountability. There will be changes, I announced, my voice firm. Starting with a complete audit of all executive expenses and contract negotiations from the past 5 years. Amanda went pale. Michael slumped in his chair. David wouldn't meet my eyes. You can't do this, Amanda whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. We're family. Yes, we are, I agreed, which is why you're not being fired immediately. Instead, you'll each have a chance to prove your actual value to this company. No more vanity titles. No more unlimited expense accounts. You'll work your way up just like every other employee. And if we refuse? Michael challenged, though I could see fear behind his bravado. I picked up my coffee cup, taking a slow sip before responding. Then you can tender your resignations. Your choice. But either way, things change starting now. The room fell silent as my words sank in. Years of being treated like their servant, of being dismissed and belittled, had led to this moment. But I felt no satisfaction in their distress, only determination to restore our father's legacy. Marcus cleared his throat. The official announcement will be made to all employees tomorrow morning. Until then, I suggest everyone review these reports carefully. Sarah, shall we discuss the transition timeline? I nodded, gathering my things as the shell-shocked board members began filing out. My siblings remained frozen in their seats, looking lost. As I reached the door, I turned back. Oh, and Amanda, you might want to change before the staff meeting. Coffee stains are so unprofessional. The next morning, I arrived early at Hudson Technologies. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon, casting long shadows across the empty parking lot. I parked in my usual spot, not the executive spaces my siblings fought over, but the regular employee section near the back entrance. Old habits die hard. As I walked through the building, employees were already starting to arrive. Their reactions were a mix of confusion and curiosity. Most had known me only as one of the Hudson kids who brings coffee to meetings. Now overnight everything had changed. "Good morning, Miss Hudson," called Maria from accounting, then immediately blushed. Sarah. Sarah is still fine, Maria," I assured her with a smile. "And those projections you sent last week were excellent. I'd like to discuss them in detail later if you have time." Her eyes widened. She hadn't known I was the one reviewing her work all these months. I made my way to what would now be my office, our father's old office, which Amanda had claimed after his death, filling it with modern art and designer furniture that clashed with the building's traditional architecture. Already, maintenance crews were returning it to its original state, under my quiet instructions from the night before. The morning staff meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. in the main auditorium. By 8:30 employees were filing in, the room buzzing with speculation. My siblings arrived last, just before the meeting started. Amanda had exchanged her usual designer clothes for a more subdued business suit. Michael and David looked like they hadn't slept. Marcus began the announcement, explaining the leadership transition and introducing me as the new CEO. The room was silent as I took the podium. "Many of you don't know me," I started, "or rather, you know me only as someone who worked in the background. That changes today. But more importantly, many things at Hudson Technologies are going to change." I outlined my vision for the company, not just financial reforms, but structural changes that would reward merit over nepotism, innovation over tradition, and teamwork over individual glory. For too long, this company has operated on two tiers, the privileged few and everyone else. That ends now. Every position from entry-level to executive will be earned through actual contribution to our success. I saw hope dawning on many faces in the audience. These were people who had watched their hard work go unrecognized while my siblings claimed credit for their achievements. Starting today, we're implementing a company-wide profit-sharing program. Your success will be the company's success and vice versa. The announcement was met with spontaneous applause. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my siblings shift uncomfortably in their seats. After the meeting, I found a line of employees waiting outside my office. Some had complaints about past mistreatment. Others had ideas they'd never been allowed to present. Many just wanted to share their relief that things were finally changing. Around noon, Amanda appeared in my doorway. She'd been crying, her perfect makeup slightly smudged. "I suppose you're enjoying this," she said bitterly. "You finally got your revenge." I looked up from the contract I was reviewing. "This isn't about revenge, Amanda. It's about saving our father's legacy, something you claim to care about but never actually tried to understand." "What's that supposed to mean?" I pulled out an old photo from my desk drawer, our father with his first employees, standing in front of the original Hudson Technologies building. Dad started this company with 5 people and a dream. He succeeded because he valued every person who helped build it, not just the ones with the right last name. "And you think you're just like him?" she scoffed, but there was uncertainty in her voice. "No," I replied quietly. "I think I'm trying to honor what he built while adapting it for the future. Something you could have done too if you hadn't been so focused on titles and status." She stood there for a long moment, then asked the question I'd been expecting. "Are you really going to audit our expenses?" "Yes. And Amanda, you might want to get ahead of the Jensen contract issues before the auditors find them." She left without another word, but I noticed her heading toward the accounting department instead of her usual lunch spot at the expensive restaurant across the street. Over the next few weeks, changes rippled through the company. Michael, faced with actual accountability, surprisingly rose to the challenge. He started working with our development team, where his ideas, when not clouded by ego, actually showed promise. David struggled at first but found his footing in client relations, once he stopped trying to impress clients with expensive dinners and started listening to their needs. Amanda took longer to adjust. The audit revealed several questionable decisions, but instead of firing her, I assigned her to work under our veteran sales director. It was a harsh fall from executive VP, but watching her gradually learn to earn respect rather than demand it was worth the risk. 3 months after the takeover, I sat in my office late one evening, reviewing our first quarter results. Profits were up 15%, employee satisfaction had skyrocketed, and we'd landed 2 major contracts based on innovation rather than golf course negotiations. A knock at my door surprised me. It was all 3 of my siblings. "We've been talking," Michael started, uncharacteristically hesitant. "And we owe you an apology." "Several apologies," David added. Amanda stepped forward, placing a coffee cup on my desk. "I got this myself," she said with a small smile. "And I finally understand why Dad always said success wasn't about the corner office." I looked at them, really looked at them, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. My actual siblings, not the entitled executives they'd become. "Pull up some chairs," I said, opening my desk drawer. "I've got Dad's old scotch in here somewhere. I think it's time we talked about the future, the real future of Hudson Technologies." As we sat there, sharing stories and actually listening to each other for the first time in years, I thought about our father. He'd always said business was about more than profit margins. It was about building something that mattered with people who mattered. Looking at my siblings, seeing them finally growing into the people they could be rather than the entitled heirs they'd been, I knew he would have been proud. Not just of the company's success, but of the family legacy that was finally being restored. The next morning, I parked in my usual spot, walked through my usual entrance and greeted the employees by name, not because I had to, but because that's who I was. The CEO's parking spot remained empty, just as it would every day forward. Some habits, after all, are worth keeping. The coffee stain on Amanda's designer dress had never quite come out. She'd framed it and hung it in her new, much smaller office. A reminder, she said, of the day she finally woke up.